At 91, Pat Boone finally tells the truth about Roy Orbison in a way that feels less like a revelation and more like a quiet settling of the heart. Time has a way of sanding down bravado and sharpening memory, and Boone's reflections are shaped by decades of distance from the bright heat of fame. What emerges is not scandal or rivalry, but an honest portrait of a man whose voice seemed to arrive from another world and whose presence altered everyone around him, including those who once stood alongside him on the charts. Boone remembers first encountering Orbison not as a competitor but as an anomaly. In an era dominated by clean-cut idols and carefully managed personas, Orbison stood apart. He did not move like a star, did not smile on cue, did not play to the room. Yet when he sang, the room bent toward him. Boone admits that many artists of the time, himself included, struggled to understand how someone so unassuming could command such power. The truth, as Boone now frames it, is that Orbison's strength was never about image. It was about emotional accuracy. He sang as if there were no audience to impress, only a truth that demanded to be released. Boone speaks candidly about the industry pressures of the period. When labels often steered artists into narrow lanes, he was encouraged toward safe material and mass appeal, while Orbison followed melodies that climbed and fell like grief itself. At the time, Boone confesses, he underestimated the courage that required. Looking back, he recognizes that Orbison paid a price for his artistic honesty. Success came, but it was never simple, and it was never fully comfortable. Orbison carried sorrow in his voice because sorrow had already taken up residence in his life, and he refused to disguise it for commercial ease. The truth Boone finally shares is that there was never envy, only awe tinged with confusion. Orbison's voice seemed limitless, capable of scaling emotional heights few dared to attempt. Boone recalls hearing early recordings and realizing that technical perfection was only part of the equation. What truly set Orbison apart was vulnerability. He allowed fragility to be heard, even amplified. In a culture that prized confidence and charm, Orbison made room for longing and loss, and listeners recognized themselves in that space. Boone also addresses the myth that Orbison was distant or aloof. With age, Boone says, comes clarity about quiet people. Orbison was not cold. He was private. He conserved his energy for the music, for the moment when everything he held back could be poured into a song. Offstage, he was gentle, thoughtful, and often unsure of how to navigate a world that expected spectacle. Boone admits that in youth, such reserve can be misread. In later years, it looks like integrity. Perhaps the most personal truth Boone offers is his regret for not saying more at the time. Not praise, exactly, but understanding. In a fast-moving industry, there is little space to stop and acknowledge greatness while it is still breathing beside you. Boone wishes he had told Orbison how profoundly his music mattered, not just to fans, but to fellow artists searching for permission to be honest. He hopes that in some way, Orbison knew. At 91, Boone no longer feels the need to polish the past. He can say plainly that Roy Orbison was braver than many of them, that he sang from wounds rather than hiding them, and that his legacy endures because it was built on truth rather than trend. The final truth is simple and generous. Orbison did not need to be understood in his time to be eternal. His voice carries on, unaged and unafraid, reminding listeners that real emotion never goes out of style.